Is climate change the new state religion? Hello, free citizens. This is John Strand bringing you the latest Frontline Flash. Joe Biden's pick for World Bank president recently said he aims to refocus the bank's goal from alleviating world poverty to also fighting climate change. Former MasterCard CEO Ajay Banga was nominated by Biden last month to fill the seat of outgoing Trump appointee David Malpass, who was set to leave his post on June 30th. Malpass was forced out in February after failing to adequately display climate change alarmism. When he was asked by a journalist in September if, quote, man-made burning of fossil fuels is rapidly and dangerously warming the planet, end quote, Malpass declined to endorse such a statement, instead commenting that he is not a scientist, which sparked intense backlash, including pressure from the Biden administration to resign. Now Biden's chosen priest of the climate change religion, Banga, is set to replace Malpass, though he also has little experience with environmental science, and has signaled he will make climate change a priority for the World Bank, whose long-standing goal has theoretically been to reduce world poverty. Banga said, quote, I have every intention of focusing the bank and its people on the idea that this is an intertwined challenge. For climate change, it's trillions of dollars a year. For inequality and poverty alleviation and development, it's also trillions a year, end quote. He continued, quote, you just have to get the private sector to be a constructive part of the solution, end quote. Get the private sector to be. Ominous words. This bureaucrat's zeal to recruit the private sector for climate change duty may serve as a warning sign for those already concerned with the climate autocracy exhibited by financial institutions. Some economists and lawmakers have been cautioning that banks are becoming the new legislatures, particularly when it comes to complying with environmental piety. Quote, they can't pass the Green New Deal in the United States Congress, said New Hampshire State Rep J.D. Bernardi, but the banks can certainly implement it. The major banks, financial management firms, and insurance companies are de facto deciding how we will be able to live. They are becoming our new legislatures, end quote. Heartland Institute Director Justin Haskins said, quote, I think it is highly likely that within the next 2 years, you're going to see financial institutions start to use a personalized social credit score of some kind to make decisions about things like your access to loans, your interest rate, and whether you're eligible for insurance coverage. All the signs are pointing to that happening very soon, end quote. American Legislative Exchange Council Chief Economist Jonathan Williams predicts that if enough progressive pressure is brought to bear on the financial system, it would mean, quote, having people's freedoms eroded without any legislation ever having to be passed, whether it's companies with a radical take on ESG or FICO personal credit scores, end quote. Last year, for example, a Dutch bank executive advocated for a social credit system centered around people's carbon emissions, which she called a carbon wallet. Bank CEO Barbara Baarsma said the idea is that a limit will be placed on citizens' carbon emissions, which will be tracked via their transactions and purchases. People can then sell any unused carbon credits to others. In Canada, a credit union now issues its customers Visa credit cards, which track the carbon emissions resulting from their purchases. Vancouver City Credit Union, known as Van City, introduced the product last month as part of its, quote, commitment to climate action, end quote. The card not only tracks customers' carbon emissions, but also tells them how they can remedy their actions. Additional examples are rapidly materializing around the world, and it's becoming difficult to ignore an obvious attempt to normalize this disturbing idea of banks instituting forced allegiance to a climate theology that is pushed as science without legitimate scientific evidence, but with endless amounts of religious fervor. Not so different from a recent medical orthodoxy that was deceptively described as science in recent years. And now you literally can't afford not to follow the science, because it controls all the money. Ladies and gentlemen, the real story of right now continues, coming soon on the next Frontline Flash.